What's up, team? Welcome back to the Dentistry Invest podcast. Interesting podcast today. We've kind of touched upon this a few times, but we've never actually did its give it paid it its dues, give it the full respect that it's deserved, and had a fully encompassing, focused, dedicated episode on this subject. Today, we're here to talk about starting a squat. I've got with me my good friend and expert on the matter, Dr. Bobby. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. How are
Bobby
you?
Bhandal. How are you? What are you up to?
Yeah, fantastic. Just finished the day in clinic and finished a little bit early to get off, have a chat with you.
Lovely stuff, lovely stuff. And then it's the weekend, of course, so things are getting better and better. Tell me, Bobby, for people who are in the audience who have yet to meet you, maybe it might be nice to do a little bit of an intro about yourself.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm a dentist, obviously. I graduated in 2013 from University of Birmingham, so about 10 years ago now. And I was an associate for most of my working life, but about 2 years ago, I decided to set up my own practice. And I set up a squat in Leamington Spa in the Midlands. And we opened in December 2022. We've been going for just over 6 months now. Yeah, things are fantastic. It's been great.
So far, so good. That's awesome. So many people say starting a squat is one of the toughest things that they've ever done. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, hands down. It is incredibly tough. Don't get me wrong, it's been really fun. I've learned so much, along the journey. But yeah, it was one hell of a ride. There was so many ups and downs. Um, but what you get out of it at the end, no one can give you that feeling. Walking into your own practice, it's yeah, knowing
Special.
you built it yourself, created it from scratch, from whatever's in your heart. It's just insane.
Cool, man. Cool, man. Well, it's a little piece of you. It's like a kid. Like every business is like a flipping kid. I put a poll out on the group the other day and I said, which is harder, starting a successful business or having a family? Probably about 80% of people said kids. So I think kids just pips it in terms of effort and probably overwhelming joy and love at the outcome, I guess. But I don't know. I've never been there. But what I will say is starting a business is a hell of a lot of work. So I'm with you on that one. So what inspires you to start a dental practice, Bobby? How did that journey begin?
Yeah, so I mean, with us, well, with me, what happened was I was in a great practice as an associate. I loved it. But the practice got sold to a corporate, and unfortunately, there was a lot of changes. Things went downhill pretty rapidly. And then at that point, came to a bit of a crossroads. I was really fed up. My list was really stable, and just couldn't really carry on anymore, the position I was in. So it was either, what I'm going to do, go get another job in private practice or start setting up. I'd always had something in my head that I wanted my own business, come from a family. I've always had businesses, so it's always been in the back of my mind. And then started having a look around, started seeing what practices were like, what they were selling for, started researching squats. My old principal had set up a squat, so he was really keen on the idea and he gave me a lot of guidance, pointing me in the right direction. And in the end, yeah, I just decided, you know what, let's just go for it.
You took the
Uh,
leap.
yeah, it took a leap of faith. I mean, goodwill values around our area, they were just ridiculous. I mean, when I was doing the maths, I would have spent all my life just paying back my bank loan, before doing anything else. When you work out the maths, it just didn't make sense to me.
So that was the main reason that made you think squat versus purchasing a practice.
Yeah, for me, doing a squat seemed like a lower risk than buying an existing practice. I know people will look at that quite silly. They'll be like, well, how can you compare that with you got cash flow coming in? But when you're comparing it with the value of practices, around where we live, to me, it was a no-brainer. For me, 250 grand, all right, fair enough. It's a lot of money. It's tough. Worst case scenario, I can go to work as a dentist if everything failed and I can make that money back within 1 to 2 years. If you think about it logically, most dentists are pretty capable of doing that.
Well, it's 100% right, and it's one of those things that there's an added incentive if you're at the very start of your career, given that you've got time to recover, right? So it's
Yeah.
kind of like this duality. Most people are waiting until they've got enough experience, inverted commas, which I think is actually a little bit of an illusion. Because I used to have that mindset where I was like, oh, I need to hit a certain level of competency at my composites or a certain level of competency at this or whatever. Naturally, it does help to have some skill and knowledge of dentistry, given that you don't want if you're a rookie dentist, you don't want your failures to be an added thing, compounding the difficulty of you setting up a business. But at the same time, if you wait too long, then it gets harder and harder. Kids come along, family comes along, all of that stuff. So there's a sweet spot, isn't there? There's a sweet spot. It's not really one or the other, and it looks different for everybody.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you're going to be the main dentist working in your squat clinically, ideally you want some level of clinical confidence because you don't want all your patients having bad treatment and things coming back on you. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. But I think anything you come out 3 or 4 years out of university, if you're reasonably confident, if you've been on enough courses, had a bit of experience, I definitely regret not doing it sooner though, because
Oh,
that's I sat on this for probably about 5 years in the back of my head. And that's 5 years experience. I could have had 5 years worth of goodwill.
there you go. And
Yeah,
what age are you now, Bobby, just for context?
I'm 34.
34. Great stuff. Okay, cool. So here's the thing. You'll have lots of knowledge that you almost think is like common sense because you've been through this process, but there'll be people out there who find it extremely valuable. And one of the things that I've always liked to know is how did you go about that process of getting the squat up and running? Did you go look at sites? Did you try to obtain finance? Just what order are those things undertaken?
Yeah, so when I first started looking, I had absolutely no idea where the hell to start, what the hell to do. I got lots of tips from principals and things like that, but we give you guidance, but there is no like rule book, there's no handbook. It is literally just a case of I had to go out and just figure it out and make a lot of mistakes along the way. But in essence, what I did was I took loads of A3 sheets of paper and I stuck them on my wall in my study right in front of where I'm sat now. And on about 7 or 8 pieces of massive white paper, I wrote down everything. So building, marketing, finance, everything. And I just started making massive lists of everything. And then I just started building it out from that. So then from that, I started looking at how much money have I got, started speaking to brokers, see what I can kind of finance, what kind of money I'll be able to obtain. Then on side note from that, started looking at buildings, locations, based on what finance we could get, what can we do. And that's literally how it went the whole way through, just piecing everything together. There's no order to everything. A lot of things happen simultaneously. It's not like you got to do this bit and then you do this bit. A lot of it's all being done, at the same time.
Cool. So in essence, what it sounds like is you started out with the vision, as in what that practice would ideally look like, and then you kind of worked back from there. And then naturally, you'd have to adapt the vision first whenever, based on what you uncovered through the journey and the process, based on what information reality was giving you. However, it's just a point to navigate from, isn't it? And finance is like that as well. The very
Yeah.
first place you start out is what is your vision? Where are you? Now the part in between is how you get there.
Yeah, the vision was massively important. I mean, that was a whole page to itself. Exactly what type of practice I wanted it to be, how I wanted it to look, the patient journey, how the patient goes through that practice, what type of patients we want, the avatars for those type of patients. And then yeah, like you said, we just work our way backwards from there.
Okay, cool. And what was that avatar of a practice? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so for us, our location, we're in a relatively affluent location. We wanted to make something that looks stunning. It doesn't look like a dental practice. We have no reception in our practice. It's all done back of house. So patients come to our practice is a very, very personalized service. People comment that it's like coming to visit their family. It's all meet and greet. We let people in. We introduce ourselves to them. They come into a lounge and they just get to relax. They can have a cup of tea or coffee. We'll go out there, we'll speak to them, have a conversation with them for 10 minutes before we take them into surgery. It's just very, very different experience to go into your average dental practice. It's definitely unique.
So that was the vision, so to speak. And do you think everybody who's starting a squat, should they aim high end? Is that necessary?
No, 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 100% not. Every person who's going to open their squat can have a different strategy. I know people who are competing with the NHS, different price points, but going on a volume basis. Yeah, it depends on so many different things. It's just what vision you have in your head. You just got to work out, can you make money from it? If the answer is yes to both of those, there's no right or wrong way. You just gotta do what suits you. You know, this was what suited me. I had a vision. I wanted to be somewhere that looks stunning, and I wanted to be able to provide great care for my patients. You know, that service, that journey, that experience was really key to me. That's what I enjoy. You know, I enjoy doing that for my patients, but not everyone will, you know.
Good stuff, my man. Okay, cool. So you had the vision, you had the plan, and then the next stage was to look into finance and look into premises, presumably.
Yeah, exactly. So
And how did you go about that? How did that occur?
yeah, we started looking at buildings, see what was around, what was suitable. I was actually quite lucky in that sense. So my family owned a building, which is quite local to where we live, in a great location. But the building needed a hell of a lot of work doing to it. So it was almost like a blank canvas. So it was great. I took the lease back of the people that were in there, and we started playing around with it. But it ended up being a massive property development, not just the practice. So we had land on the back of it. We knocked part of the building down. We built some flats upstairs, and then we kept all the downstairs for the dental practice. So yeah, it was pretty mad, really. It wasn't what I was expecting. When we first looked at it, we were just going to use the existing part of the building and have one surgery and a decon room. And it went from that to 3, 4 surgeries, a double-story extension, and a new flat.
It's quite the upgrade. What made you decide to change?
Well, when we looked at it with the architects, it just didn't make financial sense. It's like we had all the land, and you know, if we got the scope to expand, it just saved us, you know, having to do all that building work at a later date. You know what? I didn't want to have a running practice and then be doing loads of building work. So we sucked up the cost at the start, but on the back of it, you know, we know the value of the property has gone up. And you know, if we get to full capacity, you know, within 5 to 10 years, we'll have made more than our money back anyway.
Very cool, my man. Okay, cool. So basically, you had the building, you went to the architect, and you said, "Hey, here is what we have planned. We got the one surgery, the decon room," and then through that to and fro process with the architect, that's when you thought to yourself, you kind of uncovered this fact that financially it made more sense to go bigger rather than smaller, right? That's basically what happened. And I'm guessing that there's such a thing. This is coming from, I have no idea how this process works whatsoever. So I'm guessing that you get architects who are specialized in the dental sector. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so we used a great architect. He's from Glasgow, but he was fantastic. So he looked at everything for us. He gave us, you know, 5 or 6 different options, you know, for what we could do with the building, with the site. And then we picked what we liked, and then we just worked on that and developed it.
Cool, cool. And then the next step was finance, presumably.
Yeah. Next step was finance. Yeah, it's always a fun bit. So you know, it was actually a really straightforward process. You know, compared to what most people think. It was a simple case of I had a certain amount of cash which had available to use, and went to brokers. So I spoke to different brokers. This is what we've got. This is what we're planning on doing. This is how much we're going to need. I worked out, you know, my own kind of financial forecast beforehand. You know, what it's going to cost to do everything, what it's going to cost to run. And then within a month, we had money in the bank.
Oh yeah, sweet. Always a good day. Always a good day.
It
Cool.
was, but we took out our loan before all the crisis, so I didn't fix my rate.
Oh, you the mortgage crisis.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
before all the kind of war and everything that happened with interest rates, so this was obviously back last summer, and the rates they offered me, there was about a 4% difference, I think, at that time between a fixed and a variable rate. So I decided not to fix it. I didn't foresee, you know, everything that was going to happen, as nobody can. So let's just say the monthly payments at the moment aren't pretty.
Gotcha. Okay, unexpected, but no, nobody can really predict these things. It is what it is. But here's the thing. On the flip side, right? A lot of people are waiting for the perfect time, right? Whereas in reality, the perfect time never comes, does it? And these unforeseen things are going to pop up, and you just have to make it work. And you almost always do find a way, right?
There's no such thing. You know, you can get finance if you speak to brokers out there. No matter what, you can get access to money. You know, it's not an issue. The dental practices generally are stable investments. You know, money is out there, whether it's private investment, whether it's through banks, whatever it is. You can get finance. You can't predict anything. Well, you know, on the back of it, if anything, it makes me work harder because I know I've got, you know, I've got more money to pay back. So I've got to perform better.
This is it. You just make it happen, don't you? I'm a big believer in that. I'm a big believer in that. You just fill in the blanks along the way. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so you've got the building, you've got the plan, you've got the finance. What happens next?
Yeah, so then you find builders.
Awesome. Awesome. How does one do that?
Yeah, so we went to probably about 10 different builders, you know, within the dental industry, outside of the dental industry. Again, it was a minefield. We had quotes varying by about 250 grand from the top to the bottom. Yeah, which was mental. So we decided to split it up because we had an extension. We decided to use local builders who came through family recommendation to do our extension, put the shell up, and then use some dental builders to do all the internal work. It was not a very enjoyable process. A lot of mistakes. The builders who doing the extension, we had to kick them off the site. They were charging us VAT. They weren't VAT registered, amongst other things. Yeah, there's so many things you don't know if you've never done a building project before, you know, things that you should check. You know, just you need to do a lot of research into your builders. It's one of these funny things. It's hard to believe that it can be such a rogue trade when the work that they're doing is so serious. When you think about like dentists, how tightly we're regulated. Yeah, these guys are building, you know, houses that can fall down and do all sorts, you know, damage. And you know, there's just cowboys left, right, center.
Yeah, man. Yeah. What were the hardest lessons from that period? What were the biggest takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, number one is always retain money, you know, cash. Do not pay everything up front. If a builder ever asked you, I mean, we were fortunate enough, we hadn't paid. We were due payments, so we were able to not overspend. So at the point where we had to kick them off, we went at a loss, thank God. But there's a lot of builders out there that will ask for a lot of payments up front, and then that might disappear.
And is that what happened in your case? You had to say, no, we're going to spread it out.
Yeah, exactly. We worked out a plan. You know, we said we were going to spread it out. We weren't going to pay for everything up front. Unfortunately, we managed to save ourselves, and then whatever money we had left, then we were able to use it. Obviously, finding other builders.
Right. Okay. Wow. Well, I mean, lesson learned, I suppose. It could have been worse
Yeah. It could have
by
been
the
much.
signs of it, which is
Yeah.
there's a tiny upside in there somewhere. And you have got the outcome, which is you've got the beautiful practice. What were the other tough lessons learned around about that time, apart from spreading the payments? Because this is real gold for people who are going to build a practice one day.
Yeah, I mean, spreading payments. I mean, other things. You know about health and safety. You know, health and safety. We actually had a HSE officer turn up at the building site. And we had a neighbor who wasn't very pleasant to us. Thank God she moved out. She was in the process of selling a house, but she reported us to HSE because she didn't like the fact we were doing building work. And we had an officer turn up, you know, at the building, and the builders all ran away. And I was just stood there. I turned around behind me, and all of a sudden everybody's gone. I'm like, well, what's going on here? Where is everyone? And then this officer's just standing there like, yeah, so you know, do you own the building, this and that? Who's you the contractor? Who's the contractors, this and that. And he started asking me for certain documents, like, you know, asbestos surveys and things like this. You know, touch wood, I had it all. I'd researched it all beforehand and I had a lot of that stuff, but you know, he could have really got us into some, you know, real trouble, some hefty fines. So you know, there's a lot to the building work. So you gotta either have complete trust in your contractor, but even that, you got to go and find out about it yourself. You know, there's other things, you know, CDM regulations, you know, construction design management. You know, do a little bit of research into those areas so you know for yourself, you know, kind of pitfalls that can be there.
Going to say it's you used the word pitfalls. I was going to say minefield.
It is a
Same
minefield. Yeah, it
thing.
is a
Yeah.
minefield. You've never done building work before. It is a minefield. Yeah, for us it was a bit more complex because we were doing an extension and you know, got in the whole building. It's quite a big building. For most squats, if they're just shell fit outs, of retail units, things like that, it's generally a lot more straightforward. But we were the just complete other end of the spectrum, so I had no choice but to learn about everything, from scratch.
Yeah, man. Wow. Okay, fair play. Well, you made it, which is the main thing. Okay, cool. So practice, building obtained, finance attained, you paid the builders, the building's looking pretty. Presumably there's some regulatory loopholes that you have to jump through as well.
Yeah, so building regs, building control, they've got to sign off all of your work. So they come out, they check all your building work process. So they come out and sign everything off, as each stage is done. So you've got to instruct them. You can either go with your local council or you can find private companies. Again, that's another area we had massive issues with. Our architects advised us to use private company because we could get the work done quicker. They turned out to be absolutely shite. They shut down our site and we had to go back to our local council who fixed things for us and got the job moving again. Um, but yeah, that's key because it's a key. What I see is a lot of people that are opening squats don't actually know that you need building control or building regulations because what a lot of them do is they'll go to an equipment company and they'll get some drawings of a dental practice. Oh, you could have this room, that room, a chair, a decon here, and they think that you can build from those, but you can't. You can't. You need certain standards to adhere to, and building control have to sign that off. So they'll check things like fire safety, ventilation, but those are key.
Got you. And then presumably CQC, they're a factor in there as well. You have to get them in at some point.
Yeah, CQC are actually one of the easiest things, contrary to what people believe. So CQC comes in actually quite later down the line. CQC, they rely on everybody else doing the work for them. So CQC essentially just send you a list of about 50 documents that they want to see. And if you send them all those documents, they'll want to see your building control certificate so they know your building's been built properly because you're already signed off, along with everything else. And it's just like a tick box exercise essentially. And then there's really good compliance companies that will help you out with that, when you're doing your interviews for your registered manager. But for me, that was probably one of the easiest parts of the whole process.
Oh, good stuff. There we go. Anything else anybody needs to know about who's they've just completed the practice and then things that they need in order to open the doors for the first patient?
Yeah, so I mean, coming on from that, mainly is recruitment. You got to have a team.
And how does that look? Because obviously it's not like where in most practices you've got the team and then someone leaves or whatever, it's kind of just modular, like you just add them in. Whereas for you, it's like you've got this start point and you basically just have to get everything running smoothly for that
Yeah,
definite beginning. Is that how it looks? Is that that's just an added hurdle then? That's just something you have to deal with, is it?
yeah, it's just something you got to deal with. It takes a bit of time and patience. I mean, for me, the key was to start early. So I was quite fortunate. I had some of the old nurses that I worked with come in to ask me if they could come and work for me. And I took on one nurse who I worked with years ago, and she's fantastic. She helped me with loads of the compliance and setting up of the practice. And then for me, it was really, really important to have somebody who's a real people person. So we wanted someone front of house who can reel the patients in. So we ended up taking somebody from British Airways, actually.
Oh, cool.
She was an air hostess. She wanted to get out, settle down. And she was just amazing. With patients, they just love her. Like her service skills are just incredible. Um, yeah, so we kind of went outside of dentistry for that.
Right. So to the people listening, we don't have to necessarily feel bound to hire someone who's from the dental world. It can be someone outside as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I mean, we
Yeah.
we interviewed for that role a mixture of nurses and girls from outside of dentistry, and the ones who came from outside of dentistry generally performed better for that role that we wanted. In terms of customer service, take from that what you will, but
There we go. Interesting stuff. And how does the practice look nowadays now that the doors are open? Because obviously that was all 6 months ago. How's the journey been since then?
yeah, the journey has been great. I mean, the first few weeks, I absolutely shat myself. Our patient's gonna come, it's really scary. We were the third squat to open in our area. within a year and a half, and the area is quite saturated already. But no, it was just great. We did a bit of pre-marketing, so we had an open list to start with, and then it's just gone from strength to strength, really, month to month. We're taking something like 40 patients a month on average.
That's good. And how do you get the word out?
Yeah, so I mean, loads of things. We've got a whole marketing strategy, loads of different things. You've got Google ads, Facebook ads. Integrating with our local community was really good for us. Kids' schools, we did a lot of visits, things like that. Getting to local businesses. Um, yeah, I mean, we've tried all sorts really. And we're still trying to figure out, exactly what works good in our area. But yeah, it's interesting just to see where it will go. And word of mouth is taking over a lot now.
Got you. Okay, cool. And what sort of dentistry is it that you do at your squat? Is it general dentistry?
Yeah, so I'll say 90% of what we do is general dentistry. I do implants, some surgical work, but the bread and butter is general dentistry. So we do cosmetic stuff as well, composite bonding, things like that. But what we're seeing is just a massive demand for really good quality private general dentistry, root canals, crowns, um, just a lot of perio, and a lot of it's quite profitable.
There you go. Good stuff. So you don't even necessarily have to go down the specialist route. If you just do the straight up standard stuff and you do it well, you're good. You're good. Which makes sense because in most areas there is a lack of dentists. I feel like someone who starts a business in the dental world, they benefit from these huge tailwinds in that there's already this massive demand and constricted supply. And surely by the fact that you are a dentist, there's going to be demand for your skills to a higher degree than what there are potentially in other industries. That's what I've noticed anyway, which is a good thing. Would you say
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same? Would you say the same, or is that total nonsense?
No, 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 I agree with that completely. And the way we looked at it was we looked at what the other practices were doing in our area. So the other squats that were opening, they were marketing really, really heavily on smile makeovers and Invisalign. For us to compete with that on Google ads and Facebook ad spend, we're going to have to be spending thousands. And then on top of that, you got your lab bills that come with that. So we just went at it from a different angle. We can do all that work, but we went down the route of, if you want to come to us, it's more about the service, the experience, and getting really good quality, just general dentistry. Our ad spend on the back of that is massively lower than, what these other guys are having to spend to compete with each other.
I like that a lot. That's thinking outside the box.
And then
Do
in
you have
6 months, 12 months, you can upsell to them on all of that anyway, once they're in your practice.
There we go. And tell me this, how do the books look at the minute? What's the waiting list like? Like if someone comes to see you and they book an appointment, how long would they typically have to wait in order to get their treatment done should they need to rebook?
Yeah, so at the moment, about 3 weeks.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so we're running the surgery 5 days a week. So I'm there 4 days a week. I have a therapist who's working 1 day a week. We always keep same day emergency slots, so we can get patients in the same day. We like doing that. But yeah, generally for treatment, we're booked up, 2 to 3 weeks.
I mean, that's amazing because some people don't have a list that busy years into running a practice and you've managed to acquire that 6 months in. I mean, that's that's a fully functioning busy dental practice within 6 months, which is awesome. And you know those surgeries, you said you put four surgeries in, did you?
We've got space for 4. We put in 1, so we've got room for another.
Ah,
Yeah, we can put the other ones in. So we'll hopefully be putting the other one in towards the end of this year, and then start looking at expanding the team.
gotcha. Okay. So things are going not just a little well, really, really, really well. Okay, brilliant stuff, right? And I'm guessing that's what the future looks like for Bobby. We're just going to keep growing the practice, maybe look at another site at some stage. Who knows? Or maybe we're
I
getting ahead of
haven't thought
ourselves.
that far. Yeah, get this one to full capacity, and then we'll see where life takes
Let the
us.
dust settle on this bad boy. Got you, my friend. Okay, cool. Well, listen, congrats on all your success. Let's look back over the whole journey from Bobby, let me see, like 2020, whenever this stuff was just on the periphery of your perception and you were just still considering where you were going to go, whether you were going to do it or not, versus the person that you are today, the version of Bobby that there is today. What were the biggest lessons that you learned along the way?
Yeah, I couldn't do this journey being that same person that I was. Your personality has to change. It's a completely different game. Uh, the learning process that you go through that will change you, but running a business is a whole nother skill set. Being a dentist is one thing, but running a business, managing, a team, it's just completely different. Everything about you has got to level up. Your thinking, what you're doing day to day. You can't be that same person. It just won't happen. And if you take that through with you, your practice won't be successful.
Would you say that you have to embrace the overwhelm and the fear and all of these emotions, embrace them from the point of view that we have to accept them as part of the journey, because they're going to be the things that grow us and develop us into that version, the person that we need, that version that you are today, that version of Bobby that you are today, or something similar. Given that those are the things that are character building, whereas what most people do is we feel these emotions and we think, oh, life shouldn't feel like this, and we kind of back off. Whereas it's a very, would you agree that it's a very powerful place to go mentally, to be able to understand that actually that's how the journey looks? We should lean into those feelings because then we know we're in the right place and we're growing.
Yeah, 100%. 4 or 5 years ago, I was running away from it. It was in my head and I just didn't want to face up to it. Now I'm the complete opposite. I run into it. I will find it. I will go. Because
Cool.
that's what makes you better. Can't live your life scared. You got to just do it. Take risks. It's that saying you always say, if you don't take any risks, you'll just stay where you are. You don't know what's on the other side. And
Gotcha.
what's on the other side could be flipping amazing. Well, it is amazing, most of the time, but you've got to be willing to go and find out.
I love that. I love that. So that's maybe more on the mindset side of things, which is awesome and is actually probably more important. I do agree. What about technical stuff? What about mistakes that we've made? What about if you could go back to Bobby and say, hey, you got to watch out for this. You're going to waste money on this. Don't hire these people, something like that. What would those recommendations be? Or
Yeah,
pearls
I
of
mean, money
wisdom?
money wise, anything with dentistry, as you say, it's a minefield. As soon as you tag the name dentist onto anything, the price goes up by tenfold.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, no matter what it is. I mean, I've seen it in the practice, even with tradesmen who are coming in who are not from the dental industry, but because they know you're a dentist, they just see like money signs, pound signs, and all of a sudden, quotes start tripling. So I mean, key thing for me was, if you want to try and save money, is get as many quotes as possible. Don't rush the process. For me, I was just desperate. I wanted to get it done. So I was just like, I'll use whoever, get it in, they give me a quote, just do it. But if I could go back, number one, get as many quotes for whatever you're looking for, as possible. Take proper advice, whether you have to pay for it or not, you need the right people around you to give you the proper guidance. If I had a lot of that, beforehand, I could have saved a hell of a lot of money. And the other thing I would say is definitely go and learn a bit about, managing a team and people, because that's just a whole nother skill set in itself.
Cool, man. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom today. Some real golden nuggets in there. Bobby, if anybody listening wants to find out more about you, where are they best to get in contact?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram, or you can find me on Facebook. Or yeah, anybody can drop me an email. It's Bobby at avenuedentalpractice.co.uk.
Top stuff. Bobby, thank you so much for your time today. I'm sure we'll speak again very soon. Much love.
Cheers, James.